Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. In 2024, Formula 2 is the last junior formula on the way to Formula 1. At that point, you either sink or swim. Get a drive in Formula 1 or get used to unclogging toilets at your local gym. But once upon a time, it was GP2 that was the final step, replaced by Formula 2 after 2016. GP2 turned out such future stars as Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg and Pastor Maldonado. So let's go back to the final year of GP2, 2016, and see what happened to every driver who took part that year, who made it to Formula 1 and who did not. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future motorsport content, and let's jump into this look at the final GP2 season, driver by driver, starting with the last place driver and working our way up to the champion, Louis Delétraz. In 26th and last place was Swiss driver Louis Delétraz. He stepped in for the last two races of GP2 for Carlin and had a best finish of 17th at Yas Marinas. He was runner-up to Tom Dillman in the 2016 Formula V8 3.5 Series and then spent 4 years in Formula 2, getting a few podiums and finishing 8th overall twice. Despite being a test driver for Haas, he never got to race in Formula 1 unlike his dad, and has since become one of the most decorated endurance racers out there, with 2 European Le Mans and a World Endurance LMP2 title, and wins in America and Asia. Emil Bernstorff. Like Louis Delétraz, Emil Bernstorff stepped in for the final 2 races in GP2 for Arden. Unlike Louis Delétraz, he hasn't had much success since. He finished 4th in GP3 in 2015, and after 2 GP2 races, his career in motorsport was over. He still streams on Twitch if that's your thing. Filo Pasar. The Indonesian racer was around for a few years but never took a podium in his racing career. He did half a season of Formula Renault 3.5 Series in 2015 before moving up to GP2. He spent the whole of the 2016 GP2 Series with Trident and had a best finish of 14th. He was so far out of his depth it was almost funny. He disappeared soon after. René Binder. The experienced Austrian racer started in single-seaters without a whole load of success. After 3 full seasons of GP2 without scoring too many points, he moved full-time to World V8 3.5 in 2016, but he did do 4 races for ART in Carlin in GP2 in 2016 as well. No points scored, and he was soon racing in endurance cars, winning the Asian Le Mans Championship and finishing on the class podium in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2023 and 2024. Nabil Jeffrey. The Malaysian had a good start to life, a rising star in Asia. He finished runner-up in the 2014 German F3 Championship behind Marcus Pommer, but he followed that with a poor season in the Formula 3 European Championship, then a bad year for Arden in GP2, where he at least scored points at 1 race. He raced in Formula 2 in 2017 and took a LMP2 win with Jackie Chan Racing in the World Endurance Championship, but he has since retired from racing and is now part of some dodgy trading group called Vestrado. Good riddance. Daniel De Jong, an unspectacular Dutchman who spent 5 years in GP2, mostly with MP Motorsport obviously. He never broke the top 20 in the championship and only scored 6 points in 2016, which was his best ever season. He seemingly either works for or is still closely tied with MP Motorsport, as he has been doing GT races for years under the MP Motorsport banner. Jimmy Erikson. I always thought Jimmy Erikson was a half-decent driver, but GP2 did him no favours. He took 3 wins in 3 years for Carinen GP in GB3 before making the move to GP2. He did most of the 2016 GP2 season with Arden and had a single points finish of 5th before being replaced for the last 6 races. This was the end of his single-seater career, and he now races in GTs and touring cars. He stopped in 2020, but made his return this year in the god-awful electric Scandinavian Touring Car Championship, where he did take a first win for Tesla. Sergio Camas. The Spaniard never won a race, but was a Formula 1 test driver for Caterham in 2013. He spent 5 years in GP2, and did take a couple of podiums for Trident and MP, but never finished higher than 14th. In 2016 he raced for Carlin and did score 17 points. He spent 2017 in Formula 2, where he did a little better in half a season, but then stopped racing. This was after some controversy involving his father and employees at the Hungaro ring. Hopefully life is treating him better nowadays. Johnny Jakot Jr. The son of a champion bike racer and Formula 1 driver, Johnny Jakot Jr. was a decent young driver. Despite only doing 4 races in 2016, he managed a second place in the final race at Yas Marinas. He had raced in GP2 as far back as 2009 and taken 4 wins with Barwa, Adax and Trident, finishing 5th overall in 2014. He did race briefly in Formula 2, but soon wound down his career. He has returned for the odd race here and there, but seems to be done with motorsport. Marvin Keffer. The German had a great start to his single-seater career. He won the ADAC Formel Masters in 2012, the German F3 Championship in 2013, and finished 3rd in GP3 in 2014 and 2015, taking 5 wins for ART. GP2 was a big downward slope. He finished 17th overall, and apart from a second place at Monza for Carlin, he only scored sporadic points for the rest of the year. He finished with single-seaters, moved to GT racing, and has been a decent driver ever since, currently doing very well in the IMSA series. Nicholas Latifi, the first Formula 1 driver on the list, and he only finished 16th overall. If you look at Nicholas Latifi's junior career, it was pretty mediocre. He never won a championship of any kind. He did a few GP2 races in 2014 and 15, but scored no points. He moved to Dams and he finished 2nd in the first race of 2016, then never higher than 9th. He stayed with Dams for 3 years of Formula 2 and took wins, eventually finishing 2nd in 2019. 3 years of Formula 1 at Williams followed. He scored points and was at least better than Logan Sargent, but he has now retired and gone to business school. Sha Galil. Another Indonesian. I always thought Sha Galil was absolute tripe on chips, but he has improved a lot since these early days. Outside of a second place in 2016 at the Red Bull Ring, he did nothing in GP2 and finished 15th overall for Campos. He spent 4 years in Formula 2, occasionally scoring points, but generally stinking up the place, and has since moved to endurance racing, where he has at least won rounds in the LMP2 and GT class, finishing runner-up in the World Endurance Championship, and is currently driving in the same team as Valentino Rossi for BMW. Arthur Peak. Brother of Formula 1 driver Charles Peak, Arthur never reached the same highs. He spent 3 years in GP2, the first couple with Campos, where he did take a win, and a 7th overall in 2014. But he had a miserable 2015 with Campos, and a really disappointing year with Rapax in 2016. Both Peak brothers have since retired from racing. Gustav Malia. Another mediocre driver who got a test drive in Formula 1, Gustav Malia was nothing special before GP2, with a couple of Formula Renault wins. In GP2 he got a couple of podiums for Radax in 2016 and finished 13th overall. He got a podium in Formula 2 in 2017, which was apparently good enough for a test with Sauber, after which he spent some time in Porsche Super Cup and Porsche Germany, but retired from racing after 2019. He's now a director for something called the Board Company in Denmark, which I imagine is a group of people who sit around watching Gustav Malia races all day. Mitch Evans, the 2013 GP3 champion, spent 4 years in GP2, winning 4 races and even finishing 5th, then 4th in the championship in 2014 and 15. In 2016 he moved to Campos, took a race win, but had one of his worst years, ending up 12th overall. A year later he was racing for Jaguar in Formula E, where he had spent the last 9 years, taking 12 wins and being a title contender for the last 4 years without actually winning it. Surely that first championship is coming at some point. Not in 2024. Nobuharu Matsui. I once had Nobuharu Matsui pegged for Formula 1. The Honda and McLaren back driver looked like the perfect fit until McLaren split from Honda. He had 2 seasons in GP2 with ART, taking a win in both. He then spent 3 years in Formula 2, taking 4 wins and finishing 6th overall twice. Once the Formula 1 chances had dried up, Nobuharu Matsushita moved back to Japan, where despite taking a win in both Super Formula and Super GT, has never really been a title contender in either, although he is still driving for Team Go in 2024. Artem Markelov. The Russian has fallen on hard times now, but he was once one of the most promising young drivers in the junior series. He spent 3 years in GP2 with Russian Time Racing and finished 10th in 2016 with a single win to his name. It was in Formula 2 where he shined brightest, finishing runner-up to Charles Leclerc in 2017 with 5 wins. He finished 5th overall in 2018 with 3 more wins, but it was downhill from there, doing really badly, like table chair bad, in Super Formula in 2019 and having a terrible 2020 in Formula 2 with HWA. His billionaire father was also arrested in 2019 for corruption, and that might be why Artem Markelov stopped racing around that time. Oliver Rowland. You know Oliver Rowland has been competitive for his entire career. Second to Alex Lynn in British Formula Renault in 2011. Third in Euro Cup Formula Renault in 2012 behind Stoffel van Dorn and Daniel Kvyat. Runner-up in the same series in 2013 behind Pierre Gasly. Fourth in Formula Renault 3.5 in 2014. Champion of that series in 2015. Whilst he only finished 9th overall for MP in GP2 in 2016, he still took a few podiums, finished 3rd in Formula 2 in 2017, and has been racing in Formula E ever since, with a couple of wins for Nissan. He could have been a title contender in 2024 if not for a brief illness. Luca Giotto. I think the Italian is one of the best drivers never to race in Formula 1. Like Rowland, he was relatively successful in Formula Renault, but then finished runner-up in GP3 in 2015 behind Esteban Ocon. He had a quiet year in GP2 with Trident, with a single win and 8th overall. In 2017, he finished 4th in Formula 2, then 3rd in 2019. He won 5 Formula 2 races in his time, and has since made a debut in IndyCar for Dale Coyne. He's also a simulator driver for Nissan in Formula E, and is racing in European Le Mans. Still a very busy man, but never hit the levels he should have. Jordan King. Hard to believe, but Jordan King was still involved in Formula 1 a few years ago, and is a Formula E reserve for Mahindra, making his debut earlier this year. In 2016, he was a British Formula 3 champion. In his second season of GP2, taking 2 wins for racing engineering and testing for Manor in Formula 1. He's been here and there ever since, racing in IndyCar, World Endurance and Formula 2. Mostly he has been a simulator and reserve driver for Alpine in Formula 1 and Mahindra in Formula E. Alex Lynn. One of the most promising young drivers of the time, Alex Lynn had won for Formula Renault UK Series, the Macau Grand Prix and the GP3 Series on his way to GP2. He took 5 wins in 2 years with Dams, finishing 6th in both 2015 and 2016. Whilst he was a test driver for Lotus and Williams, he never got to drive in Formula 1, but has won races in the World Endurance Series, been a regular in Formula E for several years, winning in London in 2021, and he won the European Le Mans Series in 2023. He's still a top driver, racing for Cadillac in the World Endurance Championship. Norman Natto. One of the big improvers of 2016, Norman Natto had finished 18th with Arden in 2015, before climbing to 5th with Racing Engineering in 2016, taking 2 wins. He's never won a championship, but has spent the years since in World Endurance and Formula E, finishing 2nd at Le Mans with Rebellion in 2020, and has won a race in Formula E, but sadly has never finished higher than 10th outright. Raphael Marello. The 2013 Formula 3 European champion spent 3 years in GP2 and finished in the top 10 every year. He only ever won 1 race for Racing Engineering in 2014, but his best finish was 4th in 2016 with Russian time. A test driver for Sauber, Raphael Marello switched to GT racing in 2017 and has since become a top driver for BMW, winning multiple championships. Sergey Sirotkin. The Russian did get a chance to race in Formula 1. It was just a single season with Williams and he scored a single point, but that does make him the 3rd most successful Russian Formula 1 driver to date. So that's something. 3 wins in GP2, finishing 3rd in both 2015 and 16. He was a Formula 1 test driver for Sauber and Renault before racing for Williams in 2018. He did a few races in World Endurance, but has since mostly stopped racing outside of the odd appearance here and there, and is now working for Russia's motorsport governing body. Antonio Giovinazzi. Not the first time the Italian finished 2nd in a championship. He lost out to Jordan King in the 2013 British F3 Series and to Felix Rosenqvist in the 2015 Formula 3 European Series. He'd make a surprise debut with Sauber in 2017 after Pascal Wehrlein was injured pre-season. Giovinazzi crashed hard in China, but did finish his first race in Australia. After 2 years on the sidelines, he got back in the Sauber seat in 2019 and got 3 full seasons of Formula 1, scoring 21 points. Since then, he's had a dreadful year in Formula E and won the 24 Hours of Le Mans for Ferrari. So it's been mixed. Pierre Gasly. Finally, we have 2016 champion Pierre Gasly. Via a brief time in Formula E and Super Formula, Pierre Gasly has been in Formula 1 ever since, joining Toro Rosso in 2017, impressing in 2018, promoted to Red Bull in 2019, struggling and getting demoted back to Toro Rosso, and getting his first podium, the first win for the rebranded AlphaTauri in 2020, and now driving in the midfield for Alpine. He has been a consistent point scorer and is held in high regard with over 140 Formula 1 starts, a win, 4 podiums, and 400 points scored so far. So they are all the drivers who took part in the 2016 and final GP2 season. Interesting that only 4 of these drivers made it into Formula 1 and that only 1 remains. A lot of them did get a chance in Formula E, and a few of them even raced in the series in 2024. Plenty of these guys found success elsewhere, some have disappeared from motorsport entirely. Fair to say, it is definitely a mixed bunch. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Any of these drivers bring back memories for you? Are you surprised some of them didn't end up making it to Formula 1? Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.